Good evening. I'm glad y'all all could be out here tonight. As I was preparing my lesson, there was a variety of different little illustrations I thought would be a good idea for us to look at tonight. And I find that the ones that happen in my life and those that go along with whatever I'm going to be teaching in the middle school class seem to go hand in hand. Because most of the time I practice with the middle schoolers, and if I can keep their attention long enough, I'm pretty sure I can do it with the rest of them. But beyond using them as my test dummies right here some of the times, there was a word that was used most recently. As you well know, I like to talk. And sometimes my words are encouraging, sometimes they're not. And sometimes they have a good point to them. Hopefully tonight this will be one of them. One of the guys this past weekend in the wedding, we had said a few words, and we had pretty much this group of groomsmen had been together for 3 days. We had a variety of activities that we had to help out, and it's almost like a mini camp for 3 days. You're there with these people, didn't really know anyone per se except for the groomsmen, and we came from different backgrounds on those lines. But at the end of all this, I had said something, still not for sure exactly what it was. I do know the connotation was positive. And he said, Robby said da 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 da, and it was like it was the hammer on the nail. It was that point that kind of summed up the whole weekend. I would love to know what those words were, where I could practice when using some of those words better in the future. But it got me thinking about in James how we use our words, and also about how our words hit and miss from time to time. As a youth, before I ever got the privilege of using an automatic nail gun, my grandfather, who was an ag teacher, and my dad, who was a fervent believer in a hammer and nail and building stuff, I had to learn to use a hammer and nail. And anyone that uses a hammer and nail knows that you better have some concentration. You better be focused on that nail and hitting that nail, because if you're trying to get it in, you don't want to miss it. If you miss it, you may hit your finger. Or you may break the wood, or a variety of things that could happen there. It's not good. So over time, I tried to be very proficient at putting the hammer on the nail. It also got me wondering, over the past years, who were the best people I could ever think of that put the hammer on the nail? And I can think of a variety of people here, but one of the ones that kind of hit home to me, if those that remember Fred Dillon. And my dad and my mother were married by them, and of course I met at the student center, but many times he would come down for gospel meetings. And many times he would go talk to people that I never thought that could be converted, that may have been in the church, a variety of other things, and they would come back to the church. One story that kind of strikes me the most is when one time he would visit, he would visit many people, but he was in the hospital, and he ended up the nurse that was taking care of him had not been attending church, had not been doing the things that the Bible says that you should be doing, and that she was pulled back in through words that he said. And it always gets me to wondering right there, the words to say and how they mean, how they lay on people's hearts from time to time. But in James chapter 3, verses 8 through 12, now there's a great deal of information that we're about to go over right here. But I always like to, there's a saying is that you don't know what the real strength of the information is until the but. Because you may say all this, and then you get to the but, and then the rest of what's actually matters. Not to say anything else was less important right here, but in verse 8 of chapter 3 of James, it says, "But no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our God and Father, and with it we curse men, who have been made in the similitude or likeness of God. Out of the same mouth proceeds blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be so. Does the spring send forth fresh water and bitter water from the same opening? Can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olives? Can a grapevine bear figs? Thus, no spring yields both salt water and fresh water. And this is the point I want to leave with you tonight. I believe we have to sometimes back up. To be someone that can put the hammer on the nail is going to require practice. It's going to require focus. It's not going to require, like when I would get aggravated and would hit my thumb, is to just start hitting at the nail. Because most of the time you're going to miss it by just doing all these tries. A lot of time we have to make sure that our well is focused on, as Ricky said in the Bible, focused on those things we have to come back to. Sometimes we have to reset ourselves. And that's what I've tried to do from time to time. If I'm not hitting the hammer on the nail, is to reset, come back a few steps, look at the Bible, try to assess where I'm at, and then go forward on those things. So hopefully these thoughts have been encouraging to you tonight, and for us to kind of think about what kind of fruit that we bear. Then make sure that we're bearing the fruit that we're supposed to be. Also that our well that comes from our soul and from our mouth is a well that is bringing forth fresh water, not salty water. Water that may, as we know, those that grow stuff, salt water kills plants. It does not grow plants. With these thoughts, I'd like to extend the invitation. If anyone needs any prayers, or anyone's substitute invitation, come now together we stand and sing.